Hello teachers, welcome to TSH, Teacher Survival Hacks. Go ahead and click that like and subscribe button if you like what I am saying to you today in my sixth installment of my video series called Teacher Survival Hacks. I hope you like the theme music today. I was playing the theme from Dragnet, which is a police series from the 1950s. I'm showing my age now, but I was trying to find some very serious music for my introduction because today's assignment is on discipline, okay? And so this is a series, Teacher Survival Hacks is a series designed to help the beginning teacher prepare for the fall semester. It does have an emphasis on science, but any and all teachers are certainly welcome to like and subscribe if they like what I am saying to you. Okay? So all teachers are welcome. There's no problem. You can be a veteran teacher, you can be a beginning teacher, you can be a teacher of any subject. Please welcome to Teacher Survival Hacks. So as I said before, my video segment today is about discipline. And what I'm trying to get across to teachers is discipline is an ongoing process, okay? It is something that is not as simple as writing a kid up and sending him away to the office. It's much more than that. It is a process. So I am going to go over what I know regarding the process of discipline. It's going to take me more than one segment regarding discipline to explain everything, most of everything that I know about discipline, okay? So let's get started. So for those of you that have been following along through my video series of the introduction and videos 1 through 5, you should know by now that I have been urging beginning teachers to conduct some research on the units of instruction that you will be teaching this fall, whether you are contacting your department head or your team leader, or in an event that you cannot contact them or they do not want to be bothered so much regarding work assignments, and that's fine. You can also look up your state curriculum through the internet. My point to you is you need to conduct some research on activities regarding these units so you can be prepared for the fall. You want to be a contributor to your team. You don't want to be the person that always has their hands out, being the receiver, because there's nothing more aggravating to a team than a teacher that's always receiving information rather than contributing information to the team. And not only that, because you are a beginning teacher, more than likely a beginning teacher or a new teacher to the building, your particular set of kids are going to be different demographically than theirs. In most cases, you won't have the GT students. Not that it's a big deal, but some of the activities and assignments while you're teaching the same concept, some of the ways that you teach GT kids are going to be different from your kids. So you need to gather some information and save it on flash drives in the form of PowerPoints, worksheets, videos, things of that nature. You put it on the flash drive. Why? Because you don't want to rely on the internet, solely on the internet when you're teaching, because in a lot of cases, If you're in a county or a district in which the Wi-Fi or the internet is liable to go down for maintenance, you're going to be affected by that. Okay? So you want to have a native drive, which is a flash drive, which is really a portable hard drive that you can use, and you don't have to worry about the internet or the interweb to help you go along with your instruction. So go ahead and find some activities that are of interest to you, and find some activities that you contribute to the team next year, and you can fill in gaps. So there's going to be some times when you're planning your lessons with the team, and you're going to think, you know, this lesson's not going to be enough. It's only 20 minutes, and I need another 25 minutes. Well, you've already researched some lessons to fill in those gaps to help you in case the planning on your team falls short. Okay? Or if your team members decide that they don't want to do something and they're looking around at each other to find something else to do, well, you can fill in those gaps with the lessons that you have already researched and you're ready to go. And you should have those in a curriculum binder and like a journal, where that journal will come in handy next year, where you'll know exactly what you're doing from the previous year. Okay? So before staff development, you should have asked your principal or assistant principal, or made an arrangement with the principal's secretary to receive your keys, get in your classroom, set up your classroom before staff development with an eye on discipline. Or have your desks arranged with an eye on discipline. Make a decision where you want your teacher's desks with an eye on discipline. Whether it's in the front of the classroom, whether it's on the side of the classroom where you can look at them from the side, or from the rear of the classroom. My personal suggestion is to have your desk in the rear of the classroom, where you're not the focus of the class attention all the time. They don't need to know where you are. They just need to know that you are in the classroom, and you can walk up on students that are misbehaving and deal with that. If you're a constant focus of attention in your classroom, well, there will be opportunities for them to misbehave, because they know exactly who you're looking at and what you're doing. Okay? So make that decision. Okay? So during staff development, 2 or 3 days before staff development, there will be time for you to receive your class rosters. Okay? Nowadays, you will receive you have a gradebook program, and your class rosters are already downloaded into your gradebook program, or you may receive a hard copy of your class rosters. Use this time when you receive your class rosters to gather intelligence on your kids. Okay? What do I mean by that? I mean that knowledge is power. And I just said that discipline is an ongoing process. It starts from the time you actually receive your class rosters. What do I mean by that? Well, you need to find and talk to the teachers and counselors of the previous grade level. So if you're an 8th grade teacher, find the teacher and counselor of the 7th grade. If you're a 7th grade teacher, find a teacher or counselor from the 6th grade. Okay? Find the previous year's teacher or counselor and ask them and show them the roster of your students and ask them, should I have any concerns about the students that are on this roster? Can you look over this list and see? Now, if you can find the teachers from the previous year, more power to you, because teachers are very helpful with that. they don't mind telling you and giving you all the information you're ever going to want about their previous year's angels. Okay? Now, the counselors, especially the newly minted counselors that are very idealistic, not all of them, but some of them, you may have a problem because they may say something like, I'm not going to give you this information because it's privacy. They're going to cite privacy issues. They're going to say it's unethical, and they're going to say they don't want you to develop a self-fulfilling prophecy about certain kids, and they don't want you to have an attitude towards certain kids. They want you to be able to handle these kids with a blank slate. My argument to that is it's not unethical, because there are many conditions, and a lot of these are neurological conditions that you need to be aware of and that you need to be prepared for. And most of the time, no one's going to walk up to you and tell you that Billy has this condition and Susie has that condition. They're not going to tell you, okay? You have to find that out on your own accord, and you're going to have to gather intelligence. And like I said before, knowledge is power, okay? So some of these neurological conditions are inherited conditions. The parents didn't ask for these conditions. The child certainly didn't ask for these conditions. I'm not saying that these kids are bad. I'm not saying that these children are particularly challenging. Most of these children are beautiful children with wonderful personalities and with great parents, but they just happen to have some difficulties that are special in nature. And you're going to have to learn to work with the child and work with the parent regarding these conditions. I mean, conditions like autism and Asperger's and bipolar disorder and ADHD and dyslexia and epilepsy and schizophrenia and Tourette's and depression and even narcissism, okay? You're going to have to deal with those neurological conditions that no one's going to tell you about. So you need to gain knowledge and information before you get to those kids. Most people can tell you that when you are raising a kid, you're raising a child from cradle to grave, okay? Well, discipline starts before the children get to your classroom. It's not when the child is talking too much and you had enough and you write the child up. You are working on your discipline procedures before the children get to the classroom. I had just stated to you, when you arrange your classroom, you are arranging your classroom and deciding where your teacher's desk is going to be with an eye on discipline before the child gets to the classroom. Okay, so you use this information that you gathered on the children that you teach from the previous year's counselor and the previous year's teacher. You use this information because when you're making your seating chart, you can say, okay, now Billy needs to be, he has ADHD and he needs to be over there because he's going to bother Walter. And Stephanie needs to be over here away from Jennifer, because according to Miss Thomas, Jennifer likes to talk to Stephanie and then she needs to be over there. So when you begin to make your seating chart before the children get to your classroom, you are already enhancing your discipline, already getting ready for you. You always have to be a step ahead of those children as far as discipline is concerned, okay? So this is what I'm trying to tell you. So as far as being ethical or not, I disagree. It is not unethical. You are empowering yourself, and you are trying to help the child focus on what they're supposed to be doing in the classroom. You can get information such as, does this child wear glasses? Because he has ADHD and I plan to put this child in the front of the classroom. Can he see in front? And then the previous year's teacher is going to say, yeah, he wears glasses, so don't worry, you can put him wherever you want. So if you can't get to the previous year's teacher and they're busy during staff development, you know, they're going to be in their meetings and you know, they're going to be setting up their rooms, and a lot of times you don't want to bother them. See if you can go to the counseling department, introduce yourself, and find the previous year's counselor and talk to the counselor about these children. Most of the experienced counselors that have been there a while, they understand. They understand that you're going to be alone. And so they're going to tell you this. Okay, come here. And they're going to say, yeah, this kid right here, you're going to have some parent issues because this parent likes to hover. And this kid right here, this parent's always going to be calling you. So, So you're going to get that information ahead of time because knowledge is power. And again, you are already performing discipline even before the child gets to your classroom. I'm going to make this statement about discipline, okay? And I'm qualified to do that because I've spent almost 4 decades working with children from elementary through middle school and in high school, because I used to be a high school basketball coach. And let me tell you something. I know in the 50s, the teachers used to say, oh, these are some really challenging kids in this generation. 60s, they said the same thing. Oh, I know these children. 70s and 80s. But let me tell you something. This generation of kids they have their special challenges. Okay, just like any other generation of kids. And this group of kids nowadays, I call them bed children. What do I mean by bed children? I didn't say bad children. I said bed children. It's an acronym, BED. It's an acronym for bored, entitled, and distracted. A lot of these kids are like that. So you're going to have to deal with a lot of bored, entitled, and distracted children. I don't care what generation you're from and what generation these children come from. There is a generalization about boys, that boys, their main goal in a social setting is to be cool. Girls, their goal in a social setting is to be popular. Okay? That's their goal. And I'm talking outside of their academics. You know, the byproduct of going to school is socialization. Okay? And so that's their main goal in terms of gender is concerned. Okay? So I do want to tell you this. Please don't be discouraged, because everyone has their discipline struggles. Everyone struggles with discipline to a point. I'm trying to get you to a point where you have a lot fewer discipline issues than other teachers. Because I've learned over the years that I put some things in place where I had a lot fewer discipline problems than other teachers. I gotten to the point before I retired, I would average 4 write-ups a year. Okay? And there have been years when I had at least 12 to 15 write-ups, but a lot, in my defense, a lot of these write-ups have to do with the fact that I'm walking down the hall and another kid is slamming another kid's head in the lockers. And so I would have to write up this kid because these 2 children, because and those are 2 write-ups, because I was there, I was a witness, and that needs to be documented. Okay, so am I saying that I'm perfect? No. I will never tell you that I know everything or I am perfect, but what I am telling you is I am qualified enough to tell you that the things that I put in place for my classes worked. Okay? You got to understand that everybody struggles with discipline, including myself. Okay? Each year is different. What do I mean by that? I mean, each class is different. If you're in middle school, your 6th grade class may be your good class of kids, what we call cycles, good cycles. Your 7th grade class may be the challenging class, the bad cycle of kids. Your 8th grade class may be your average kids, they're average kids, and they're not good nor particularly bad. Each class is going to have their own, each grade level is going to have their own different characteristics. It's what I call the herd mentality. They come to you with a herd mentality. A lot of these kids, you have to understand, they were educated together in elementary school. I used to have kids tell me, oh yeah, Mr. Ross Walters like that. He was like that in elementary school. He was like that in 5th grade, and he was like that in 4th grade, Mr. Ross. So, yeah, you're not saying anything different, So, and the kids used to tell me about kids, okay? They come to you with a herd mentality. It's just the way it is. You have good cycles of kids in each grade level, and you have bad cycles of kids regarding different grade levels. And that's going to affect your discipline. Not only that, in addition, each one of your class periods, you're going to have to teach them handle them differently. Your 2nd period may be your great, wonderful class, and your 6th period can have a whole bunch of behavioral challenges in that class with powerful personalities that demand attention. And some of the things that you can do with your 2nd period, you can't do with your 6th period. You can do a lot of activities with your 2nd period. You're going to have to prescribe some writing and seat work activities with your 6th period, because you got a whole bunch of kids that want to be clowns in your 6th period class. They want to act out in your 6th period class. So there are some things that you're going to have to make adjustments on how you teach with 6th period as opposed to 2nd period. Even though you're teaching the same concept, you're going to have to change, perform some slight changes with your 6th period as opposed to your 2nd period, which is why I am urging you, strongly urging you, before you get to that classroom, download some additional lessons and materials for your units of instruction so you can have that for those kids, for different kids, okay? So each class you're going to have to handle each class differently, okay? This is all part of discipline, people. This, here's a principle that I follow. You discipline before you discipline. Okay? So, as far as discipline concerned, let's go where the rubber meets the road. Let's talk about the brains of younger children as opposed to adults. Everybody knows that the adult brain and the brains of children are wired differently because children their brains are developing, okay? You actually develop from the back of your brain toward the front, okay? Your neurons in your brains are gaining connections, okay? And this process is called myelination. And I'm not going to use this time to go over myelination with you. Yes, I know the process of myelination. I teach the nervous system as part of 7th grade science. Done that for years. I know all about neurons and synapses and myelin sheaths and things like that. I know all about that. But now is not the time for me to go over an anatomy lesson of the brain. But I will tell you that parents, they recognize this. And for you parents out there with teenagers, a lot of you parents, you love your children. You love your children dearly. You do anything for your children, but you don't like your teenagers. Your teenagers are aliens. They don't like what you say. They don't like what you do. You go on a car trip, they don't want to go. You serve them some food, even the food that they requested. Now they don't want to eat it. They don't want to talk to you. They want to slam their doors. They want to have anything to do with you. And yes, they are smarter than you. And yes, you are stupid because you're an adult. Okay? They don't like their children. And I don't blame them. When a lot of parents are like that. Didn't like their children. Don't like them. They love them, but they don't like them because they're alien. And they pray to the Lord that there will be a time and they'll be able to reason with their kids. Well, let's go where the rubber meets the road, people. Let's talk about brain development. There is a person in UCLA, a Dr. Dan Siegel. He came up with a model of the brain, and it's brilliant. Okay, and I'm going to share that with you. Okay, so the analogy of the brain, he used a fist. Okay, and here you have the spinal cord. The spinal cord is connected to your is part of your central nervous system, and your wrist is it represents your spinal cord. Okay, branching off your spinal cord is your peripheral nerves that go to your hands, your feet, your fingers, your eyes, your ears, your nose. Branching off your spinal cord are your peripheral nerves, but that's not what I'm talking to you about. So your spinal cord, which is connected to your brain, which is also connected to your brain stem. Okay, your brain stem is represented here on your hand. Okay, and so this is a primitive part of your brain. It controls your respiration. It controls your heart rate. It controls your blood pressure. All the things that you really don't need to think about. It is the primitive part of your brain. Inside of your brain it's called the limbic system, and you have two structures in the limbic system. One is the hippocampus, which is the center of memories, and the other is the amygdala, which has to do with emotions. Okay, it's the center of emotions, where where anxiety is it's the center of anxiety, for lack of a better term. Okay, anxiety comes in three forms: fight, flight, and a freeze response, where you freeze up. Okay, this limbic system, your amygdala and your hippocampus, are primitive parts of your brain. Okay, this is part of your downstairs brain because it's located down. It's down here near the base of your brain. Okay, the upper part of your brain is called the prefrontal cortex. This is the area of logic, reasoning, and abstract thought. It is the least developed of the brain in a young child, all the way through high school. It's the least developed. This system right here, the amygdala, is, being that it's the primitive part of your brain, it is the part of your brain that helps keep you alive. What do I mean by that? Well, anxiety can be a good thing because anxiety can keep you alive. Okay, for instance, you're on a nature walk and you're walking down a trail, and all of a sudden an alligator appears across the trail. Where you're going to flee without even thinking. It comes from your amygdala. Okay, that's part of your anxiety. Is your flight response. It keeps you alive. This area of your brain has had a lot more practice keeping you alive than this area of your brain. Okay? So here's what happens. When a person experiences trauma, and what do I mean by trauma in the classroom? I mean, supposing a student you give your students a pop quiz. And this particular student is really involved in their studies. They want to make all A's. And all of a sudden you pop a pop quiz on them. What happens? Well, their anxiety level comes into play. Their heart starts racing. Their breathing is faster. And now the level of anxiety takes over, okay? So this area right here of abstract thought and reasoning, called the prefrontal cortex, is no longer in play. This person is actually panicking, okay? Another example, you get mad and you get into a kid's face and start yelling at the kid. Well, the kid is now having a mini anxiety attack. This prefrontal cortex is not in, it's called flipping your lid. It's no longer in play. Now you're dealing with the amygdala, okay? This kid is getting very emotional right now, okay? And so you're not going to be able to reason with this kid until you deal with the amygdala. Because the amygdala is extremely sensitive to every little threat that is perceived by that person. And if they perceive you in their face yelling at them or giving them a pop quiz, if that's their perception of a threat, this amygdala is going to hijack this prefrontal cortex. And you can't reason with them. They're not listening to you, okay? The only way that you can get these kids to reason is you have to deal with this first. And how do you do that? You have to get them to calm down. You will see when you receive your modifications and your accommodations in reference to your special education kids and your 504 kids, you will often see the accommodation called cooling off period. That's what this is about, the cooling off period. They want you to calm these kids down to where they can go to an area where they can breathe. So these are the things that I would have to deal with. You in the classroom, you probably may not ever have a situation to where a student has a condition where they will get upset and scream and yell in the classroom and maybe throw furniture or something like that. You may never have that situation happen to you. I'm just getting you prepared for what might happen in the future, okay? So as I said before, discipline is an ongoing process. Your discipline procedures start before you get to the kids get to the classroom, and it ends well after the kids leave your classroom each day, because there's going to be some times where, you know, the children leave your classroom during that period, and you're going to have to make a decision whether you're going to have to move this kid to another seat the next day or so forth and so on. So it's an ongoing process, and we all struggle to some point, at some point, with the concept of discipline. So don't be discouraged. We all have our discipline concerns, okay? So if you like what I am saying to you, go ahead and click the like and subscribe button. And I would thank you for this time. Until next time, we'll be seeing you.